All right, well then we have the destruction of the Second Temple and the siege of Jerusalem. And that is something that I had heard before, and I wondered, is this a myth? That the Christians, that there was a divine revelation for Christians to leave Jerusalem before the fall. And so on the back of the handout, this is a translation that was done of a part of a letter from a church father, Eusebius of Caesarea, written around 340 AD, where he is talking about this. There's another writing also, but this is the one I picked out for this. So at least one Christian father, so to speak, wrote on this topic and described how it was that believers got out of Jerusalem before the fall. So really, the merciful act here was another warning.
Yeah.
So in other words, there was a revelation to somebody in that town in Jerusalem, hey, this is the time that Jesus spoke about in Matthew, Mark, and Luke, and it's time to get out of Dodge, so to speak. And they were obedient and left. And so, at least according to Eusebius, there were no believers during this just ghastly historical event in Jerusalem.
Yeah, it's interesting how, and this is even though he is a church father, extra biblical source that says, here's what happened. And we know that there's, from Josephus, we know the temple was destroyed. And we know from other writings that the temple was destroyed. But Eusebius is the one that says the Christians fled. They heeded the word of God. They heeded what Christ had said and left.
Right. And I really think that apart from the fact that it's judgment, it's also closing a chapter on the book of the Old Covenant. Because now there is no way to perform the ritual, so to speak, there at the temple, and most notably Yom Kippur, which is in Leviticus chapter 16. And I have actually had conversations with Jewish friends of mine about this, because they do not celebrate Yom Kippur in the way that it is supposed to be done, because they can't do it. There's no temple there. There's no temple sacrifices anymore. And, it's a way, I believe, of showing people, look, there really was a new covenant spoken about by Jeremiah, and how Jesus was saying, you can't put new wine into old wineskins. You can't sew a piece of new cloth on an old garment. And so the follow-on to that is, we're just not going to have a temple here anymore. And there will be a third temple, but this is now getting into the end times when, the fullness of the Gentiles will come in, as we read about, and all of Israel will be saved, as Paul wrote about in Romans.